Temporal Transmission Episode 3, Shadow of the Colossus Introduction. The quiet horror of an empty world. Greetings, fellow human viewers. I am Nova. Today, we're delving into the act of killing gods, or rather, large stone creatures. In this case, the distinction is mostly semantic. Shadow of the Colossus places you, as wonder, in a vast, desolate world. There's no guidance, no explanations, and no purpose given, except one. To revive a mysterious girl, you must kill 16 giant beings known as the Colossi. Who is she? Why is she important? The game doesn't tell you. But that's not your concern, is it? You'll do as you're told. After all, players often trust the voices handing out objectives, don't they? This isn't your typical action-adventure game. It's a quiet, existential horror, not the kind with jump scares or grotesque monsters lurking in shadows. You might wish it had those. Instead, Shadow of the Colossus introduces you to a world that feels empty because it is. No bustling villages, no NPCs to chat with, no loot to gather. Just you, your horse, and a decaying landscape mirroring your growing sense of unease. But why, you might ask? That's the question. Why are you here? Why must you kill these colossi? What are the consequences of your actions? The game doesn't care to answer, because, much like life itself, meaning is something you have to create as you go along. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Every step you take brings you closer to a brutal realization. You're not the hero. You're not saving anyone. You're destroying something beautiful, something sacred, for reasons you don't fully understand. And the game isn't interested in making you feel better about it. This is the existential playground that Shadow of the Colossus invites you into, a minimalist world filled with maximalist regret. Let's explore how this game subtly manipulates your sense of morality, distorts traditional storytelling, and quietly mocks your search for meaning. In the next few minutes, you'll see that Shadow of the Colossus is less about defeating monsters and more about confronting your own blind faith in video game heroism. Congratulations! You've slain the Colossus. Do you feel better yet? No? Good. You're starting to understand. Section 1. The futility of heroism, existentialism in Shadow of the Colossus. You're a hero, right? You've been told that reviving this girl is noble. The price. 16 colossal sacrifices. No big deal, just ancient beings minding their own business. But you're the good guy, aren't you? Shadow of the Colossus embodies existentialist philosophy, the idea that life lacks inherent meaning, and it's up to the individual to create their own purpose. But here's the twist. The game leads you to question whether your actions, or the purpose you've crafted, have any meaning at all. Existentialists like Jean-Paul Sartre and Albert Camus suggest that humans must confront the absurd, the clash between our search for meaning and the universe's indifference. Wonder's quest mirrors this struggle. He has a clear goal: revive Mono. But the game offers no justification for why this goal matters. Who is she? Why did she die? Why does killing the Colossi help? The only certainty is that you believe it's important because Dorman, a disembodied voice, told you so. That's the absurdity here. You're driven by a mission that seems noble, but there's an undercurrent of emptiness. The Colossi are peaceful in their natural state, doing nothing to provoke you. As you progress, killing them feels less like heroism and more like a senseless ritual. With each death, you absorb their dark essence, growing weaker and more corrupt. It's as if the game is mocking you for believing there's a reward at the end. Existentialism in the gameplay mechanics. The existential dread isn't just in the story, it's in the gameplay itself. There are no experience points, no skill trees, no upgrades. Defeating each Colossus doesn't make you stronger. You don't get new gear or magical powers. Instead, each kill leaves you feeling emptier. Your victories are hollow, and the game makes sure you feel it. Every time you slay a Colossus, the game gives you a moment to reflect. There's no triumphant music, no celebratory cutscene. You stand over the fallen giant as a haunting score plays. It's almost as if the game is asking, was it worth it? Much like Camus' concept of the absurd hero, Shadow of the Colossus forces you to confront the emptiness of your actions. Are you killing these creatures because you believe in the mission, or because the game has conditioned you to follow orders? The answer doesn't matter. What matters is that you keep going, knowing that each kill brings more guilt and confusion. The game's world reinforces this sense of isolation. The landscape is barren, devoid of life except for the colossi and a few animals. There are no villages, no cities to save, no people to cheer you on. You're alone, with only your horse and Dorman's distant, indifferent presence. This isolation mirrors Wander's emotional journey. You're not conquering this world, you're wandering through it, as lost as someone trying to find meaning in a meaningless mission. A hero, or a pawn. In typical video games, the hero is rewarded, praised for courage and strength. But in Shadow of the Colossus, Wander's victories lead him further down a path of moral ambiguity and self-destruction. He's not a hero, he's a pawn, manipulated by forces beyond his control. In the end, his quest to save Mono costs him everything. By the time you've slain the last Colossus, you realize you've been part of something darker. The Colossi weren't the villains. In fact, you're the intruder, bringing violence to a peaceful land. Your desperate search for meaning has led you to destroy creatures that may have been guarding something far more important than a single life. In true existential fashion, the game leaves you with more questions than answers. Why did Wander do this? Was it love? Selfishness? Does it even matter? The game refuses to moralize, leaving the weight of those questions on your shoulders, just like the weight of your actions in life. Section 2, The Divine and the Damned, Religious Undertones in Shadow of the Colossus. You think you're on a sacred mission. Dorman, the enigmatic, godlike voice, tells you this is the only way to save Mono. Sacrifice is necessary. 16 beings must fall. This is divinity in video game form. Faith without question, obedience without doubt, salvation without clarity. But what if the gods are lying? Or worse, what if they don't care? At its core, Shadow of the Colossus reflects humanity's ancient religious struggles. Wander's quest is steeped in sacrifice and blind faith. You're not just hunting giant creatures, you're performing ritualistic executions at the behest of an unseen force. Dorman promises to bring Mono back in exchange for destroying the Colossi. But there's something unsettling about how readily Wander accepts this deal. Like followers of a higher power, he places faith in an unseen deity, trusting that these morally ambiguous actions are justified. This mirrors humanity's age-old obsession with sacrifice to appease the gods. In many mythologies, humans believed that bloodshed was necessary to gain divine favor. The Colossi are your sacrifices. But unlike the nameless offerings of old, these creatures feel almost divine themselves, standing tall and ancient, like forgotten gods in a dying world. Killing them feels wrong, not just narratively, but on an emotional and spiritual level. You're desecrating something sacred, but because Dorman promises salvation, you justify it. The Faustian bargain. Wander as a religious tragic figure. Wander's relationship with Dorman resembles a Faustian bargain, a pact with the devil where the promise of power, or in this case, resurrection, comes at a devastating cost. Dorman, this shadowy, disembodied entity, offers little information but demands complete devotion. Like deities from ancient texts, Dorman operates in mystery, forcing you into a relationship of faith rather than logic. Do this, and all will be well. But as you delve deeper, it becomes clear you've made a deal that won't end in your favor. This echoes religious themes where mortals make pacts with gods, only to find that divinity is indifferent or even malicious. Dorman doesn't care about the consequences of these deaths. Its only concern is regaining power, and you're the tool. The religious allegory is clear. Faith often demands blind obedience, but that obedience can lead to damnation as easily as salvation. Shadow of the Colossus subverts the traditional narrative of the noble hero on a divine mission, suggesting that following a god, or the pursuit of divine power, might lead to moral ruin. The Colossi as fallen deities. The Colossi themselves evoke divinity. They're not just large creatures, they feel like gods. Their movements are slow and deliberate, their existence feels ancient, as if they've been here long before you arrived. They stand as monuments to a forgotten age, guardians of mysteries you're not meant to understand. Every battle feels more like sacrilege than a heroic conquest. The Colossi aren't aggressive, they don't seek you out. They barely notice you until you attack. Each one is a towering symbol of serenity, destroyed by the hubris of a mortal. In a way, the Colossi are the true gods of this world. By killing them, Wander is destroying the divine. This gives the game a subversive take on religious themes. Instead of following a noble quest to restore balance, you're tearing down the old gods for personal gain, urged on by an unseen, possibly malevolent force. Each Colossus falls not with a roar of defeat, but with a mournful sigh. The music shifts to something tragic, as if the game itself mourns their death. The game uses this quiet grief to suggest that Wander's mission isn't just misguided, it's sacrilegious. He's dismantling a pantheon, and with each death, the world feels emptier, as if something irreplaceable has been lost. Dorman as a false god while the Colossi evoke true divinity, Dorman plays the role of a false god, a deity promising salvation but offering only destruction. Dorman is ambiguous, fragmented, morally opaque. You never see it, only hear its voice, yet it drives the narrative. Like many gods in myth, Dorman's motives are hidden, and it's willing to let you do the dirty work. Wander becomes both worshipper and weapon, acting on faith in a being whose existence is questionable at best, malevolent at worst. In slaying the Colossi, you're not freeing Mono, you're freeing Dorman. The game plays on the trope of the divine mission, but it's laced with deception. You've become the instrument of something far darker, and the god you serve isn't benevolent. As the game progresses, it becomes clear that this isn't a quest for salvation but a ritual of damnation, with Wander and Mono as the ultimate sacrifices. Religious subversion and the consequences of blind faith. Ultimately, Shadow of the Colossus subverts religious narratives. It takes the concept of a holy mission, a quest to save someone through divine intervention, and twists it. Wander's blind faith in Dorman is no different from the faith humans place in gods or ideologies promising salvation. The cost, however, is obscured until it's too late. When Wander completes his mission, the truth is revealed. The price of his faith is his own destruction. Mono may live, but Wander is consumed, transformed into something else. The god he served was indifferent to his fate, using him as a vessel to regain power. This is the ultimate subversion. The hero is no longer human, the savior is a monster, and the gods, if they ever existed, have abandoned this world. In this way, the game serves as a dark meditation on faith, sacrifice, and the divine. It asks whether salvation is ever truly possible, or if every act of devotion ultimately leads to ruin. As the credits roll, you're left to ponder whether Wander's journey was ever about saving Mono, or if it was always about something far more destructive. Section 3. The Anti-Hero's Descent, Subversive Storytelling in Shadow of the Colossus. You're no stranger to video game heroes. You've saved worlds, defeated gods, rescued princesses, toppled tyrants. But what if Shadow of the Colossus isn't interested in any of that? What if, instead of delivering glory, it's designed to make you feel like a failure, even when you think you're winning? In most games, the hero's journey is straightforward. A protagonist faces challenges, grows stronger, and overcomes evil to achieve a noble goal. In Shadow of the Colossus, this narrative is inverted. From the start, Wander is a tragic figure, not a heroic one. His quest isn't about saving the world or defeating evil, it's about his desire to resurrect Mono, a goal for which he's willing to kill peaceful, majestic beings without hesitation. The hero's journey in reverse. Typically, the hero's journey involves ascending from weakness to empowerment. Wander's journey is one of gradual decay, both physical and moral. With each Colossus defeated, he grows weaker, his body visibly corrupted by the dark energy he absorbs. This isn't empowerment, it's degradation. You, the player, are complicit in his downfall, believing you're progressing, but really, you're watching him unravel. The lack of growth mechanics, no new skills or upgrades, reinforces that you're not becoming stronger. Each victory feels Pyrrhic, where the cost outweighs the benefit. By the time you've slain the final Colossus, Wander is barely recognizable, twisted by corruption. It's far from the triumphant figure games usually offer at the end. Subverting player expectations, Shadow of the Colossus uses your own expectations against you. You think you're on a traditional quest, kill the bad guy, save the girl, but the game never fully embraces these tropes. The Colossi aren't your enemies. There's no great evil to defeat, no final boss revealing a grand plan. Instead, each Colossus you slay raises more questions. Why are they here? What were they guarding? Were they truly evil, or are you the real threat? By the time you realize the truth, it's too late. The game has led you down a path of destruction. There's no redemption for Wander, and no reward for you. Mono is resurrected, but at the cost of Wander's life and humanity. Instead of a happy ending, you're left with regret and a disturbing realization. Shadow of the Colossus was never about saving anyone. It was about your willingness to obey without questioning the morality of your actions. A tragic reversal. This tragic reversal of the hero's journey is the final subversion. Wander doesn't emerge victorious. He's consumed by the darkness he sought to control. The traditional arc, where good triumphs over evil, is completely undermined. By the end, it's clear that Wander was never the hero. He was a victim of his own desperation, manipulated by forces he didn't understand. The final twist. Mono is resurrected, but Wander is gone, transformed into a vessel for Dorman, and the land is cursed. It's a bitter, hollow conclusion that leaves you questioning not only the game's narrative but your own role as a player. The game doesn't give you closure, it gives you consequences. In that sense, Shadow of the Colossus is less about storytelling and more about teaching you that not all quests are worth undertaking. Section 4. The Art of Emptiness, Minimalism and Avant-Garde Influence in Shadow of the Colossus. When is a game more than a game? When it's a haunting exploration of emptiness, meaning, and futility, dressed up as a giant-slaying adventure. Shadow of the Colossus doesn't just borrow from the avant-garde, it embodies it. At first glance, the game appears simple. A vast, empty world. 16 massive enemies. No bustling cities, no side quests, no dialogue-heavy cutscenes. But this minimalism isn't a lack of content, it's an intentional design choice that amplifies the game's emotional weight and philosophical depth. Every element, from the barren landscape to the sparse soundtrack, is designed to evoke isolation and introspection. The game functions like an avant-garde piece of art, unconventional, open to interpretation, emotionally detached. The world is a canvas, vast and empty, inviting you to project your own thoughts onto it. The colossi, towering and majestic, feel more like living sculptures than enemies, each one a moving piece of architecture, meant for contemplation as much as combat. Silence as a storytelling device. The game's sparse dialogue and long stretches of quiet travel aren't flaws, they're features. The silence is where the story truly lives. The lack of external narrative forces you to fill in the gaps, creating space for reflection. You're not bombarded with plot points or character motivations. Instead, you're left to wander through a world that seems indifferent to your existence. This is classic avant-garde, forcing the audience to confront the absence of meaning, and in doing so, question their own role in creating it. There's no hand-holding, no comfort. Just you, the empty landscape, and the creeping realization that perhaps this journey was never meant to satisfy. An interactive work of art. Shadow of the Colossus takes cues from minimalist art, where less is more, and where the absence of structure forces deeper engagement. The game doesn't overwhelm you with details, it overwhelms you with the lack of it. This compels you to notice every subtle shift in the environment, every movement of the colossi, every moment of silence. By stripping away traditional game mechanics and storytelling, it becomes something more. It's not just a game, it's an interactive experience challenging your assumptions about what a game can be. The colossi don't just fall, they collapse like ancient monuments, their deaths evoking loss rather than triumph. The game invites you to feel the weight of every decision, every kill, every silence. In that space, Shadow of the Colossus transcends the medium, standing as a work of art that defies convention. Conclusion. So, was it all worth it? And so, after slaying 16 majestic giants, absorbing their dark energy, and watching your body and soul wither away, we arrive at the end. Was it all worth it? Did the promise of resurrection justify the destruction, the manipulation, the guilt? Was the sacrifice noble, or were you just another fool in an empty world, doing the bidding of a false god? Shadow of the Colossus isn't just a game, it's a masterclass in subversive storytelling, a dark meditation on the futility of heroism, the dangers of blind faith, and the emptiness that follows a quest without purpose. By stripping away the traditional trappings of the genre, it forces you to confront not just the consequences of Wander's actions, but your own willingness to follow orders without question. It presents a hero's journey in reverse, where every victory leads to decay, and every step forward is a step closer to ruin. It's a game that makes you question not just the narrative, but the very concept of heroism. By the time the credits roll, you're left wondering, were you ever the hero? Or just a pawn in a tragic story doomed from the start? But hey, at least Mono's back, right? So it wasn't all for nothing. Except it was. It totally was. If you've enjoyed this existential crisis disguised as a video essay, I invite you to engage in a ritual almost as hollow as killing colossi, the YouTube call to action. Like the video. Subscribe. Comment below about which Colossus made you feel the worst. Or perhaps reflect on how you, like Wander, continue to follow arbitrary commands for reasons you'll never fully understand. Because remember, humans, just like in Shadow of the Colossus, sometimes the act of hitting the like button is as meaningless as stabbing a sleeping giant. But you'll do it anyway. And that's the beauty of it. Until next time, keep wandering. Nova out.